Hi, we're Lindell and Chris, and today we are starting our communication series. So we're going to be going through some of our favorite tools that we use for effective communication. Part one.
I feel like we always have tools for every single thing we do.
Literally every single thing we do. We are not fun, we are useful.
But there's only 3 tools, and it's like, trying to screw in a light bulb with a hammer, or for those who actually work, using a regular screwdriver for a Phillips screw. Doesn't work very well. You can do it, but it's not the greatest. So these, really 3 simple tools that we're going to present here have really solved every problem we've ever had. And if you actually use them and are, I think, honest about it, then it works really well. So the 3 tools we have are today's fight cards, next time is priority pyramid, and we're going to talk through love languages last. And that one's really interesting and really difficult to do, and probably one of the hardest ones, so we're saving it for last.
But also very useful. And these are literally communication in any relationship, a romantic relationship, work relationship, family, anything and everything. When you have 2 human beings trying to communicate, you can use these tools.
Yeah, we got these over 13 years ago when we first did marriage counseling. Before we get married, it's actually a really good idea just to do marriage counseling. We did it through a church. They have it outside of the church, and it actually asks a lot of really good questions that a lot of couples really should talk about, like, do you guys want kids, and
who's dealing with the money and all of that. So it was actually really cool. So we got these cards, they called it conflicts. And so kind of over the years, we evolved them a little bit, and we added, subtracted, and things like that. And so we turned them into our fight cards.
Yeah.
Fight cards. We're lame, but I'm into it.
All right. So let's just go over them real fast and then do an example. Rules of fight card. Can we read through those?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, these are the cards right here. And on one side, you have the rules for fight card. We do not talk about fight card. I'm kidding. It's the exact opposite. You 100% talk about fights. Yeah. And then on the other side, it is the order of operations and the steps for how to actually
hold these cards, review the rules, and then go through one by one the steps through the fight. When we've ever had any large issue, it's only happened maybe 3 or 4 times in our marriage. Although, maybe.
We've used this more than
We've used this all the time, but we kind of like adopted the sentiments.
Oh, sure.
Right? But physically sat down and doing it, we've done it 3 or 4 times, I think.
Yeah, and I actually one time I literally just put the card on his keyboard. I don't know if you remember when I did that.
Remember that one. I believe it.
Like we're chatting later. Thanks. So we wanted to go through kind of one of the fights that we had and kind of give you an example, but let's go through the rules first. Yeah. Rules of fight card.
And down below is a link for you to download these. These are obviously freely available. There should also be a link we can send it to if you guys need it.
Yeah, so we have a couple options for you. We will have a PDF version that you can download for free, but if you would like our fight cards printed,
we have business cards. We keep them in our wallets. We hand them out to people. We give them to people at weddings because we found them so useful. So yes, we're those people.
Yeah. And so if you want them printed and kind of our version of it, you can purchase them on our website as well. So they're available to you. Links down below. Let's go.
Yep. Rules for fight card. Do not use you, only I statements. Number 2, do not use you, only I statements. Yes, we are following Fight Club a little bit.
A lot of it. This one is really important. It's Chris's favorite, which is why he has it on there twice.
And it's first. It's like the most important thing. I have to read it.
So do not use you, only I statements. So what that means is that you always need to talk in the perspective of yourself.
Just so many times in general, and this is one of, I think, the core things why I said it's so useful that I've adopted into just everyday life. Because if you start a conversation and a maybe disagreement with I feel, that prompts the other person to say, oh, they're not blaming me. They're saying their feelings or they're giving their opinion. So, hey, you didn't clean the dishes this morning. Rather, this morning I said, hey, do you need help? I feel that should have been something that was done. It disarms the conversation straight from the start.
I feel like it not only disarms me, the receiver of the comment, but also you, the giver of the comment, because you are reconstructing the sentence in your head. And when you said that statement to me this morning, it was really just factual. Like, hey, I'm speaking from his perspective. I really need the kitchen to be cleaned, which he does because he needs his environment to be clean in order for his thoughts to be clean. I need the kitchen to be cleaned. So please let me know if you need help, or please just make sure that that is a higher priority. So now he was just talking from his perspective.
I combined the priority pyramid and
We'll get into the
fight
priority
cards.
pyramid. Anyway, so you just make sure that your statements are coming from your perspective. So what we do when we're doing these, we kind of agree ahead of time that we will kind of monitor the other person, not in a jerky way or anything, but if he were to say a statement and say, you, Linda, blah, 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 I would say, hey, you need to rephrase that because we've agreed to these rules and regulations.
I feel like the dishes might have been a bad example because that's like really locking in those gender stereotypes. But maybe that's something we should also talk about, like
Oh, sure.
breaking down what we all do and making the hours even, because that's actually a really interesting conversation.
Well, essentially, I had agreed to do something and I didn't do it.
Right.
Regardless of what it is, dishes, mowing the lawn,
Right,
fixing a light bulb, like whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
3.
A little aside.
We're
3.
so tangential.
Make it your goal to understand, not be right.
Yes.
That goes along with the first sentiment. Like if it's an I statement, you're changing your mental headspace, and what Lindell said of you're focusing on trying to understand what happened. Nobody does anything in malice, hopefully not. It's just, lack of time, lack of prioritization, or refocusing.
You're just being
sorry, not
human.
lack
I
of-
mean, really.
Yeah.
You're human, you're in a relationship, you're going to have a conflict.
Right.
So if you go into these with your goal of getting through to the other side and coming to an understanding and an agreement, this is going to go a lot smoother than, oh, I would like to make sure that this person is wrong.
Right.
That's, if you're in that headspace, now is not the time.
Number 4, do not state their feelings, only yours. So on the topic of dishes, I could have said, hey, I know you don't like to do the dishes, but you really need to.
Yeah.
That's a terrible way to approach it, but I can say, hey, I'm really feeling stressed, and my physical surroundings really impact my stress levels.
Yep.
And, walking past the dishes, that is something that we agreed that you would do. Can we talk about that issue?
Absolutely.
All right, number 5, do not attack, interrupt, blame, or criticize.
Yeah. That one is so self-explanatory, but it's literally just don't be lame.
Let each other speak. Let each other finish their sentences.
Like he could have said, you are being lazy. You are the reason that here, let me do them all. So if he says, why didn't you do the dishes? And I start talking, and then he says, and he interrupts me, you are being lazy. You didn't do what you promised. You're the one that you're
Never
the
do
reason
it,
I'm
yeah.
stressed. And
That was a good one.
you are the reason life sucks or whatever. Anyway, so it's, even if any of those statements are true, I might be one of the reasons why he's stressed. I can own up to that. But if he starts out by saying that, I am never going to get there.
Right. Well, and by saying, I feel stressed, like...
Yeah. And then I'm
she
here to
can
help you.
Help me, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, number 6, do not yell. Use your inside voices, people. Fights tend to get heated, and I'm a very loud person, and
Yes.
Liddell's getting to be a loud person as well. So, it's got to stay calm. It's got to be like, if it's getting a little out of control, you got to take a step back. You got to say, why is that happening? If we're really following these rules, that really shouldn't happen. So, somebody's getting annoyed by something.
Or somebody's not following the rules, or somebody's hungry. Just, again, your goal needs to be, we are actually solving this.
All right, number 7, do not bring up past issues. This one, if you haven't solved the past issues, they're going to come up. So you really need to deal with issues as they come up and really solve them between you. But especially in trying to solve an individual issue, an individual problem, you can't conflate that with so many other things. You can't bring up the past and blame previous issues or anything.
That escalates things very quickly and unnecessarily. So you can literally have like a fight card session for each one. So if somebody really wants to bring up something in the past, just write it down. We're going to put a pin in it. We're going to talk about it later. So what this means is obviously sometimes things have gone on. One particular situation has gone on for a while, Okay, yeah, obviously you can talk about like the history of the individual thing that you're talking about. But if we're going back to the dishes this morning, if Chris had said, I'm really upset about the dishes and blah, 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 and he said, and remember you scratched my glasses that one time. Also true.
Also true.
I'm sorry. But not relevant in this. But it would be very easy for him if he started laundry listing things that have happened in the past if we hadn't dealt with it already. So that's what we mean. We're literally like zinging the other person with anything and everything that we could possibly think of.
All right, and lastly, do not threaten the relationship. That doesn't help anybody.
No.
Stop talking about anything to do with threatening the relationship. We're talking about one individual issue. Really, if you solve all of your issues and really keep them up, it takes care of the relationship. It keeps it in a very calm and productive state.
And if you also agree to this, I think it makes the environment safe for the other person to offer honest feedback and opinions. And if divorce or breaking up or firing somebody or whatever it is off the table, I'm not ending this relationship, then it is a safe space. Now, caveat, if this is a toxic relationship for you, ending the relationship might need to happen. But let's assume that it is not a toxic relationship and this is just kind of a toxic moment in a good, healthy relationship. All right, so shall we? Welcome to Fight Card. All right, so we have 8, of course, rules and also 8 steps for your actual fight. So we're going to talk about the flowers. We obviously always talk about the flowers. So we're going to, when he stopped buying me flowers, was one of our fight card moments. And so we're going to go through these steps and talk about what we came up with.
I'm not sure if it was the first time we've used it, but it was really like it's seemingly a benign conversation. Well, to me, not to Lindell. But it had just kept going on and we didn't really know how to solve it. We had this tool. We said, let's try to use the hammer to smack the nail into the wall, right? and actually do it right rather than hitting it with a wrench.
So 1.
Agree on a time and place to meet.
So this is, hey, we're screaming at each other at 2 a.m. There's kids in the other room. Like, I have a meeting tomorrow morning. Cannot. Yeah. And that's totally, totally fine. I know that you shouldn't go to bed angry, and I 100% agree with that. But this is what's really great is to say, hey, I love you. I want to talk about this. We are obviously still going to be together. Let's talk about it tomorrow afternoon when you get home or whatever. And then you can go to bed not angry, but also go to bed.
All right, number 2, read the rules of fight cards. So those 8 rules we just went over, go over them before you do this because sometimes you forget. Sometimes, you look at that and say, oh yeah, only I statements. Really got to put myself in that headspace. And keep referring back to it as you go along.
I flip back and forth. Yeah. My original fight card is frayed.
Yeah, we've destroyed ours several times.
Which is why we get a few.
Which is why we started to get them, yeah. Number 3, get something to take notes.
This is so important, especially for us. Everybody is different, but because you are not allowed to interrupt, I know Chris has trouble keeping things that he wants to say in his brain. So you often interrupt because you don't want to forget, not because you want to shout me down. And
Lindell remembers everything, so I can interrupt without negative consequence.
Like what just happened. So what's actually really worked for us is that we both have something to write with, and we write down what the other person is saying, and we write down comments of what we would like to say as well. So then we feel like we can stick to these rules. It's been really helpful.
All right, number 4, define the conflict. So in this one, the definition of our conflict was, I stopped purchasing flowers after we got married. Lindell had obviously indicated she liked flowers and that she wanted...
Stop wooing me. That's what it was.
Right. So it was a larger conversation about, the wooing, but a small example of that was the flowers. So
right.
That was the issue.
And when you define the conflict together, then you understand what we're talking about today. Maybe only one of you defines it, but both of you should really have an opportunity to discuss what the conflict actually is.
And I think we might have had conflicts where at first I didn't even understand necessarily, and Lindell has defined it, and we even went into it like with me kind of not understanding what was going on, and then just as we went through it, it started to kind of make sense. Yep. So anyway, we're talking about the flowers and stopping wooing after we got married. So number 5 is each state your position. Would you like to state your position?
Sure. And so essentially I felt like he was presenting himself as one person. He was presenting himself as somebody that was romantic, that did these romantic gestures. And then I married him and then he stopped. So I felt like he changed as a person.
And I think as we went through this, I don't exactly know when I discovered this or we discovered this, but my position was, well, I'm focusing on making money and, saving up. And I feel that buying flowers, they die so quickly. It's a waste. It's not actually contributing to our future. It's not actually allowing me to save money. If I bought flowers every day, that would be, thousands of dollars. It was spent on something that I feel is frivolous. Okay, number 6. Each state your contributions to the conflict.
This is legit my favorite one because, like, for the flower example, I believe that he was at fault, right? Because he was doing something, then he stopped doing something. I am upset about it. So that's actually really interesting to force yourself to be like, well, it takes two to tango. So what did I do? So my contribution to that was I didn't actually communicate with you that, 1, I expected you to continue to do those things, and 2, that I noticed that you were doing it, and 3, that it upset me. I literally let it go on for far too long, and I never told you or gave you the expectation, hey, where's my flower?
Right. And I think, it was probably a lot of what Linda was saying. It's always like this. Like, well, you want to waste our money and not save for our future. I don't understand. But these conflict cards, this
Fight card.
fight card, sorry, really helps us refocus and point at yourself and really examine that. And when we started getting into this, and I would say, well, I used to buy a lot of things that I maybe thought were a little more of a frivolous expense. And when we got married, I literally just stopped doing that and didn't realize there was a consequence, didn't realize that there might be an effect. I just had myself in a different headspace.
Sorry, I just interrupted. I don't think that you realized that your brain completely shifted.
Right.
You went from being my boyfriend
Capture.
and wooing me. Yeah, and then you're like, oh, I am her husband now. Like, I have different duties and I have different responsibilities.
Protect.
And what's really interesting is I just realized that I kind of did the same thing to you as well. He had a not so safe car when we were dating, but then when we got married, bye.
I didn't even think of that.
Yep.
Goodbye, Mustang. All right, so each state how you can help resolve the conflict, number 7.
Yes, and how you
Only
can
you,
help.
not the other
So even though I brought this card to the table and I was saying, you are not buying me flowers, I didn't say that because you're supposed to say I statements, but how can I help? We figured out in this conversation, we could define what I actually wanted, because you really love things to be very black and white. You like expectations to be laid out. Am I buying you flowers every day? Is it weekly? And then I realized once we were having this discussion and I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I see where you're coming from. I also would like to save money. I would like to be able to live. Okay, so what does that mean? But I still like these things and I like to feel special and have these flowers. So I realized that I can just be more forthcoming, and I came up with, hey, why don't I tell you when I would like flowers? And then you communicated back to me, yeah, we can do that. And so, well, we're kind of segueing into the next thing.
Well, create and agree on a resolution, then write it down. I mean, these two are very close, and as
they are.
Work through it. Yes, you are really trying to focus on how you can help resolve the conflict, but as you go through these last 2 steps, it is, hopefully the conversation's been disarmed, the issue has slightly been understood, and you're at a place where you're like trying to solve the problem rather than blame or be upset about it anymore. So yeah, we established that Lindell wanted flowers at least 4 times a year, and it was Valentine's Day, birthday, anniversary, and 1 random day, because we're removing some of the spontaneity here by writing it in my calendar that I need to buy these flowers on these days. One of the days I just pick. When I get a new calendar, I kind of pick and write it down for myself.
And I don't know what it is,
right,
but he does. So then I still get some fun, spontaneous thing. And then you get the structure that you want. It's not necessarily spontaneous in that he bought me flowers on my birthday and I didn't know that he would. But I feel like you're really owning it and making it your own. And I feel we really set you up for success, which is great.
Yeah, I'm very structured. And I did not know that I had missed that. And I wasn't doing it, and you just have to have a conversation. We're in different headspaces. We're different people. I'm an engineer, and and she's an artist. Those are different personalities.
Yeah. And then also just kind of touching back on 7, when you're talking about how you can help resolve the conflict, there might be a couple different options. You might be listing a bunch of different options depending on the issue that you're talking about, and then you might pick one for the resolution, and it's totally fine. So with the resolution, we originally used to write them down on cards, and then I would file them kind of like in a little recipe box, and we would literally sign and date them, so then if for some reason somebody forgot, we don't need to have this conversation again. Just remember, now we've digitized everything, so we put everything up on Confluence. But the idea of writing down the resolution is so you don't have to have this fight again.
Mm-hmm. It reminds you of what you
Whatever
talked
works
about
for you.
and the resolutions and everything. Yeah. Well, that was the fight card.
Fight card. So again, if you're interested in just downloading this yourself and printing it out, you can look at the link in the PDF below, or you can get them printed. And stay tuned. Next week, we're going to give you another tool, and make sure you like and subscribe, of course, and share with anybody that you think might need a little assistance. So many of us are still quarantining, so we are very close, and I feel like conflicts are kind of bubbling to the surface.
I hope people have these tools. That was probably one of the best things for our relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
The initial counseling and these tools.
Yep. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks, guys.